Your Honor. All right, so on August 28th, you and Cole were texting about how he thought his teachers were plotting against him. And then we moved to August 29th, the next day. Was Cole doing better or worse that day, or the same?
I don't remember off the top of my head without looking at my texts.
I'm gonna go ahead and display what is from State Exhibit 159, which is Macee Gray's cell phone extraction from the date August 29th, starting at 2:27 p.m. So you text Colt, how do you feel today, Colty? At 2:27, he doesn't respond, and you text about 4 hours later at 6:37, and this is actually UTC time, so this would be 10:27 and 2:37. So you text, you out there, Colty? And then he responds, yeah, I'm here, sorry, it's just getting worse, had to take another, I'll make it to school, trust. And then you send him a text at 6:42. Mamu is going to bring me back up here on Saturday for a few days. That place I sent you in Athens is open on Saturdays. So if you feel up to it, we could check it out. So I guess he tells you things are getting worse, and then you send him another text about going to Athens Behavioral on Saturday.
Yes.
Is that accurate? All right, so that Thursday, after you text with him, did you try to call the school?
Yes. The school was closed on that Friday, I think. And so I had planned on calling and talking to Lisa, the guidance counselor, her guidance counselor, his guidance counselor. And I did call, and I got a hold of her, and I was just basically gonna give her an overview of what had been going on with Colt, what our plans were, and just to make sure that she was aware of what was going on. And I did get a hold of her. She was in the middle of talking with another parent, and I said, well, it's very important that I talk to you today. I don't want it to wait till next week. She said, give me your phone number and I'll call you back, I promise. She never called me back.
And I'll go ahead and display those phone calls from the timeline from August 29th from your cell phone extraction. Looks like there was you called twice and you spoke to her one time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So that was Thursday the 29th. On Saturday the 31st, you were planning on taking Colt to Advantage Behavioral. At this point, were you still living in Fitzgerald?
Yes, I was staying in Fitzgerald.
Had you been in Fitzgerald ever since August 16th?
Yes.
Okay. And Colin, did he have all of the children up here in Bexar County in his custody?
Yes.
Okay. So, tell me what the plan was for you getting to Bexar County to go to Athens Advantage Behavioral.
So originally my mom was going to drive up to Wander with me. She broke her hand, so that plan was off the table. And so I had asked her if she would maybe meet Colin halfway so we wouldn't have to drive all the way down to Fitzgerald. At first she was going to do that, but again, her hand was really bad. And so I ended up asking Colin if he would drive the whole way to come and get me. Again, we had been planning all kinds of activities and stuff that we were going to do with the kids, and we're going to go to the Athens crisis on Saturday. And then out of nowhere, really Friday night, Colin's mood completely changed. He was not really wanting to talk about the weekend. Then Saturday morning, he basically said he wasn't going to come get me. He didn't have money for gas, even though we had planned on doing all of these things that cost money, as well as my mom was always giving him gas money. So gas wasn't an issue. I don't know what the issue was, honestly. But he said he wasn't coming to get me, and then he went silent. He, again, with no texts, no calls. I was talking to the kids on their phones all weekend, but he basically ignored me the rest of the weekend.
And you indicated that Friday night when y'all were talking, his mood changed. Did y'all get into kind of a verbal disagreement about something?
Yeah, I think I want to say the guns came up again. The storage or putting away of the guns.
And when you say that came up again, does that mean you were talking to him about putting the guns up again?
Well, I asked if they were put up, and because he had said he was going to put them up. By put up, I mean lock them in his truck. And when I asked him about them, he got really defensive and angry, and basically said no, they weren't locked up. And I said, if you don't lock them up, I'm going to call in another wellness check with Barrow County. I'm going to have Boo Boo go in your bedroom and look and see if the guns are still in the top of the closet or whatever, out on the dresser. And of course he didn't like that. So I'm sure that played into why he didn't want to come get me on Saturday.
And at this time, I'm going to display text messages from August 31st that morning between you and the defendant. They are in the August 31st tab of State's Exhibit 156 under text messages. So you send the defendant a text message at 10:24 that says, about to leave Fitz. Mamu isn't coming to stay because my daddy's birthday is tomorrow. Can you and Boo meet us halfway so she doesn't have to drive all the way up and back in one day with a broken hand? And then there was a phone call after that between you and the defendant. Is that where y'all talked, where he gave the gas money excuse?
Probably, I'm not sure. I'm not absolutely sure what was said during that
And
conversation.
Then at 11:46, you send another text message to the defendant, or 11:35, that says, so that's it. You were prepared to spend money on gas and everything else to go to Lake Blue Ridge, but you can't spend the gas to drive 2 hours and pick me up. That's BS, and you know it. And then at 2:01 p.m. that same day, you say, I can't believe how selfish you're being. Me and Boo have literally been counting down the days for 2 effing weeks till I could come visit. I would never have done this to you. And then on September 1st at 1:01 p.m. you say, why are you doing this? And then on September 2nd at 9:46 you say, are you just going to keep ignoring me? At least let me know y'all are okay. And then he responds on September 3rd at 7:31, hey, sorry, just trying to keep everyone and everything together and calm. It's not the easiest thing, but I want you to talk to Boo regardless, okay? So between when you were supposed to go down that Saturday and that text message on September 3rd, did he contact you at all?
No.
Okay. So is it fair to say that you, up until that August 31st, you and the defendant had been communicating about your concerns about Colt and his concerns about Colt?
Yes.
Okay. That weekend, August 31st, did the defendant take Colt to Advantage Behavioral?
No.
Okay. Now we're going to move to September 4th, the day of the shooting. Were you again still in Ben Hill?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
did you talk to the defendant that morning of September 4th?
Yes.
And what happened when you talked to him?
He basically told me that Colt had sent him some strange text messages. I told him I had not gotten any text messages from Colt, and so he sent me what Colt had sent him. At the time, I was in the car with my mom. I don't even remember what we were doing, but I shared them with her, and from there we just kind of discussed what the text messages were, and I wanted, to find out what was going on quickly, because reading the text messages, just like he could tell, I could tell there was a tone to it, and they were like kind of really short, and they weren't normal Colt texts, so you could tell something was not right. So I tried texting Colt, I think first, couldn't get a response. I never actually got a text from Colt himself until after I had started trying to call the school and talk to the school.
And when you called the school, were you able to talk to somebody?
Yes.
And who did you talk to?
I talked to Miss Lisa, his guidance counselor that I called on Thursday the week before.
And at this time, I'm going to display that phone call from State Exhibit 159, Macee Gray's cell phone extraction, and it's from the timeline portion of that exhibit. So you call the school at 9:50 a.m. and speak to Miss Butler for 8 minutes and 57 seconds.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what y'all talked about.
Well, she started out by apologizing. She said that in the 30 minutes that she was with the other parents, that prior Thursday she had misplaced my phone number. So then I went ahead and just kind of covered some of what had been going on with Colt, told her about the anxiety, told her about some of the issues between him and his dad. I told her a number of different things. I actually had a list written in a notebook that I had at the time, and then she went on to tell me that basically it was ironic that I had called her because his first period teacher had sent her an email saying that Colt had been asking questions about active shooter drills. This, like I said, was in the period prior to where he was at that time. When she told me that, I said, okay, well, we need to cut this phone call off right now, and y'all need to go locate my son and find out what's going on.
Did you tell her that he had access to guns?
Yes, I don't remember how I worded it, but I did tell her about the guns in the house, and that him and his dad, enjoyed shooting guns at the gun range, and it was like a hobby. And so she said, okay, well, I'll see if I can't find somebody to track him down. And I didn't feel like I couldn't hear urgency in her voice, and I said, I need you to take this seriously. I need you to put down what you're doing, and you need to go find him right now, please. And so we got off the phone.
And after you got off the phone, you said that Colt did text you.
Yes, he did text me. He basically texted me almost exactly what he originally texted his dad earlier.
And I'm going to go ahead and display that text from 10:02 on September 4th, where he says, I'm sorry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so at this point, are you concerned?
Very, very concerned.
And I'm going to pull up some more text that you sent to your mother and to the defendant from 10:17 on September 4th. Up there on the right, you say, you should probably go ahead and make arrangements to leave work. And then at 10:18, you text the defendant, they're going to need you at the school. So at this point, y'all, that the school shooting has not started. Tell me why you're telling him he needs to go ahead and go to school.
I think primarily it was just because I knew something was going on with Colt. What that something was, I had no idea. Whether he was just having another panic attack episode, because in the month or so leading up to this, there had been several times where he was having really bad anxiety at school, and so he would leave class and just go sit in the guidance counselor's office. I didn't know if he was going to hurt himself, hurt someone else. I really had no idea what was going on, but I knew something was not right, and I knew at the very least the defendant was going to need to go to the school to find out what was going on with Colt.
Okay. And so, and you had some concern that he may have brought the gun to school, right?
Honestly, that crossed my mind after I knew that they were having like active shooter stuff going on. I won't say that crossed my mind initially when I was reading the text and stuff.
Okay.
My mind didn't immediately go to the gun.
But eventually it did.
Sure.
And then at 11:32 that morning, you Google Apalachee High School active shooter. And that's when it pops up that a Georgia school is on lockdown.
Yes.
And it reports of an active shooter. Is that right?
Yes, I had already tried to call the school multiple times and no one was answering. So then I tried calling my daughter's school, which was right there by the high school, and nobody was answering there. So that's when I Googled the.
And when you Googled it and found that there was an active shooter, you sent the defendant a text message at 11:34, and it says it's already on the news. At that point, did y'all know what had happened?
Yeah, I don't think you have to have a whole lot of sense to know what had happened at that point.
And at 11:34, you talked to the defendant. And then you talked to him again at 12:22. What did y'all talk about?
Honestly, I probably couldn't tell you exactly what was said. Actually, I do know one thing that came up. I called him at one point to find out if he was at the school, if he had made it to the school or not. And he said, well, I didn't go to the school, I'm going to the house, or I'm at the house. And I said, why are you at the house? And he said, well, I said, you need to be at the school, you know. We have 2 other children. And he said he wanted to see if the Colt's gun was at the house.
During that phone conversation, did he express any concern for Colt's well-being?
No.
Did you drive up to Bear County that day?
Yes, my mom drove, but I rode with her. We left pretty shortly after it started being reported on.
And is it fair to say before Colt's name was released, you knew that Colt was the shooter? Is that fair to say?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that you and the defendant, after you left and went back to Fitzgerald, y'all continued to communicate about Colt and the issues he was having. Is that correct?
Prior to the shooting.
One of those issues was that he wasn't going to school, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to pull up from State's Exhibit 159 a search that you did on August 29th, which was a couple of days before that Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go back to on page 5. So you Googled truancy laws in Georgia at 10 o'clock on August 29th.
Mm-hmm.
Were you concerned about kind of who could get in trouble if Colt didn't go to school?
No, I can actually tell you exactly why I looked this up. So Colin was also concerned about Colt not going to school. And he had called and basically told me an idea that he had to try and get Colt to go to school. And he was going to call me, or he was going to have me call him and pretend to be someone from the truancy office. And he was going to have the conversation where Colt could hear him talking to me on the phone, to try and scare him into thinking, you know, he was going to be truant and get in trouble. And so that's why I looked up truancy laws, because there was a question I had about his plan, and whether or not it would really make any sense or not, because, you know, Colt's a smart kid, and I didn't want him to get online and look something up and be like, what are you doing? I know that's not the truancy officer or whatever. So that's why I was looking that up.
So that was around 10 on August 29th, and then at 2:30 is when you text Colt and ask him how he's doing. And if you could bring up those texts again. So the text messages. Page 25. All right, so at 2:37 p.m. you say, "You out there, Colty?" And then he responds at 2:38, "Yeah, I'm here, sorry, it's just getting worse. Had to take another, I'll make it to school, trust." About 20 minutes later, at 3 o'clock, you Google school shooter parents charged with manslaughter. And then at 3 o'clock, you read an article that says what James Crumbly's manslaughter conviction means for parents. And then at 3:05, you search again, school shooter parents charged with manslaughter. Tell me why you were searching that.
They had just come out with a documentary about those parents, and Colt and I had actually watched it before I went home and had some discussions about it. And I think the actual reason I looked it up is because we didn't know what the outcome of it was.
So you had seen a documentary with Colt before you went back to Fitzgerald
Yes.
about the parents.
I think
And-
Mom. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, and it talked about why the parents were charged. Ethan Crumbly's parents were charged?
Yes.
Okay. So if that's what the documentary was about, then why at 3:05 did you Google why were Ethan Crumbly's parents charged? If you learned that from the documentary.
I have no idea. I mean, I obviously had more questions about it even after the documentary, you know.
And then you went to an article that said what led to James and Jennifer Crumbly's guilty verdict and read that. Does that sound accurate?
Probably. I mean, once you Google something, it comes up with a million different things, and just click on everything you see.
Okay. And let's see, at 3:09, you actually Googled safe storage gun laws in Georgia. Why did you Google that?
It could have been something that came from what I was reading about the Crumbly parents. It could have been me looking for a way to get Colin to store the guns legally. I don't know. I can't tell you exactly.
Okay. Because the Crumbly parents were charged because they didn't secure their weapons, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
Objection, Judge, the DA's testifying.
well, I asked her if that was correct, and she said yes, I'm trying to give context for her searches.
Objection, leave.
Well, I think in this particular instance, I think it's okay to leave.
Well, I'll sustain the legal question. Ask another question.
Okay. Next, you visited a website for safe storage gun laws in Georgia.
Mhm.
So you were specifically looking up gun laws for Georgia. Can you tell us why you wanted to know about that?
Probably because the guns in Colin's house were not being stored in any way.
Okay. And then you went to a website that says secure storage or child access prevention required. So you went to a website specifically about preventing children from getting access to firearms.
Yes.
Was that the same reason you went to that website?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, because my kids are in the house with the guns.
So after you Googled why the Crumbleys were charged with manslaughter and then also looked at safe storage laws in Georgia, you had a conversation with the defendant. And that would have been at 3:55
Mm-hmm.
for 14 minutes. Surely you brought up what you had found out in that conversation. Is that accurate or not accurate?
Probably. Honestly, I can't remember what we talked about. It depends on really the reason I was looking it up. You know, if I wanted to try and find something to convince him to lock the guns up, then yeah, I probably would have shared something with him. If it didn't prove my reasoning for wanting the guns put up, then I probably didn't bother sharing it with him.
Would the fact that you found a case where parents were charged where a child shot someone, would that be something that you would want to tell him in order to put the guns up?
Oh, sure. But I mean, I think he was already aware, I mean, of that case. He didn't watch the documentary, I don't think, but.
Okay. And so y'all talked for 14 minutes from 3:55 to about 4:10. And then at 4:11, you once again looked up what led to James and Jennifer Crumbly's guilty verdict. Why did you look it up again right after you got off the phone with the defendant?
I have no idea. I'm sure it had something to do with what we talked about.
Okay. And then you had 6 more conversations with the defendant that day.
Mm-hmm.
August 29th into the evening. So you have at 4:19, at 4:21, at 5:03, at 5:12, at 5:31, and at 5:41, you're talking to the defendant.
Mm-hmm.
You testified earlier that when you talked to the defendant on Friday, August 29th, in the evening, his attitude changed because y'all got into a disagreement about him putting the guns up.
Mm-hmm.
Did your searches prompt that discussion?
Probably.
Okay. And so you, on this date, testified that you told him to put the guns up. And
Yeah.
what did he tell you?
He told me, well, I had one comment that I remember specifically. He said that if he went in Colt's room and tried to take his gun to put it up, that it would basically cause a shitstorm, indicating he didn't want to take his gun away because he didn't want to deal with it.
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Cross.
Yes, yes. Good afternoon, Ms. Gray.
Hey.
My name's Brian Hobbs, and I represent Mr. Gray. I'm going to ask you some questions. If I ask a question that doesn't make sense, let me know. I'll try and rephrase it.
Okay.
I understand going to be asking you questions about things that happened a good year and a half ago. Okay?
Yes.
I know you made some previous statements, so if it would help to refresh your recollection, let me know, and I can kind of show you some of these statements to help see if that'll help.
Okay.
All right. Now, you've been testifying for a while, and you've told us a lot of stuff, so I definitely have some questions for you.
Okay.
Maybe we'll work backwards a little bit. So, we just heard about some internet searches you did,
Yes.
correct? Back on August 29th, right?
Yes.
And it sounds like you have a bit of a memory about those conversations, but maybe you don't remember everything that was said between you and Mr. Gray that day.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm going to bounce around a little bit, so just let me know
Okay.
if I'm getting kind of confusing or anything, and I'll try and slow down. All right. So, you first called Lisa Butler, and I'm orienting you to kind of that last week of August in 2024. You called Lisa Butler on Thursday afternoon, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And your mom had met with Miss Butler, what, about 5 days prior to that? A week prior?
Yeah, I think it was on a Tuesday, maybe, or Wednesday.
Tuesday or Wednesday of that same week? If you know.
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
asking you to guess.
I would be
Okay.
guessing. It was either that week or the week prior. I think it was
Okay.
that same week, though.
So you called Miss Butler on Thursday afternoon and you spoke to her, it sounds like very briefly.
Yes, very brief.
Said you had some more information you wanted to share with her, but it sounds like you needed more time to do that.
She needed more time.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yes.
you just simply asked her to call you back and left your
Yeah,
number with her.
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
Okay. And then it sounds like the next day, Friday, would have been a school holiday.
Yes.
Is that what your memory is?
Yeah.
And then the following Monday was a school holiday as well, correct? If you remember.
I'm not positive.
That's okay. And obviously, we heard about these conversations you would have had on the 29th, which, would that have been the same day you talked to Ms. Butler, or was that the next day?
I talked to Miss Butler on Thursday, so the conversations were on Friday.
Conversations with Mr. Gray
Yes.
were on Friday. So those internet searches were on Friday as well.
Yes, according to, yes, what the prosecutor just said.
Gotcha. And those searches that we just saw, those would have been on Friday too.
Yes.
The internet searches about truancy laws, about the Crumblies, all that stuff. Okay. Do you remember any Google searches you would have done on your phone around that same day about Nicholas Cruz?
No.
Adam
I mean, I
Lanza?
wouldn't be surprised, but
Well, I'm just asking if you remember. I'm not asking you
no.
to guess.
I Google all kinds of stuff every single day, so there's no way I
Okay.
remember.
You remember Googling Adam Lanza,
No.
Parkland,
No.
Sandy Hook?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. Do you remember receiving information that day, and I'm not asking you what anybody else said, but do you remember receiving any information that your son Colt had been trying to get in touch with Nicholas Cruz?
Receiving information that he had been trying to get in touch with him.
Trying to communicate with Nicholas Cruz. Did you receive any information around the same time regarding Nicholas Cruz and Colt reaching out to him without telling me what anybody told you?
I don't know if it was at that specific time.
Okay, we'll circle back with that. Maybe
Okay.
some text messages might help refresh your memory.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Now, all right. This all kind of seems to happen over a real short period of time, within about a 30-day span, that things accelerated based on what you're telling us. But it also sounds like from the testimony we've heard, there was a lot going on for quite a while, a much longer period of time than 30 days. So let's start, all right. So, and just to kind of clarify, just so we're all on the same page, when you're having these conversations on the 29th with Mr. Gray, you said that you thought they might have been about putting guns up, right?
Yes,
Okay. And that might have been what one of the main disagreements was.
yes,
Okay. And when you say disagreement, obviously I think what you're trying to say is that you guys have different opinions on whether or not the gun should be put up at all
yes, and how they should be put up.
and how they should be stored. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes,
And it sounds like you were not satisfied with the answers you were receiving with Mr. Gray before this conversation ended.
yes.
Okay. So after that happened on the 29th, did you call 911?
No.
Did you ask to do a welfare check?
I told the defendant that I was going to do a welfare check if he did not.
And did you in
Put
fact
the-
call 911 to do a welfare check?
No.
And you had done that previously. You knew how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
But he was not communicating with me at that time.
That you did the welfare
At all.
check?
Mm-hmm.
So you're referring back to November of 2023?
Yes.
Okay. And so you're saying the reason you didn't do a welfare check this time is because he was communicating with you?
He was at least I knew that my kids were not dead.
Okay. And on the 30th, which would have been the Saturday, it sounds
Sure.
like,
Mhm.
right? You didn't call 911 on that day?
No.
No, he wasn't communicating with you on that day?
No, but the kids were.
Kids were, okay. Didn't ask to do a welfare check?
No, again, I was talking to the kids, so.
Okay. So on, moving ahead to Sunday, didn't call 911 on Sunday?
No, I talked to him and the kids again on Sunday.
Okay, didn't do a welfare check?
Nope.
Okay, same question, we roll around to Monday. Didn't call 911,
No.
didn't ask to do a welfare check?
No, at the time, I felt like that would definitely be overkill.
Okay, weren't concerned,
Mm.
is that right? And you have to say yes or no for the court
Sorry.
reporter. That's okay, everyone does it. So Tuesday rolls around, right?
Yes.
So Tuesday, school's back in session. On Tuesday, you don't call 911,
No.
don't ask to do a welfare check,
No.
don't call the school,
Mm. No.
okay. All right, so now let's kind of go back a little bit. You talked a lot about things that happened in different years, 2022, 2023, and we heard that, for example, you were aware that Colt was interested in school shooters.
Yes.
You knew he researched them online.
Yes.
You knew he followed them.
What do you mean by followed him?
Just was interested in them,
Sure.
gathering research on them.
Yes. That's a good way to put it, research.
Okay. You had information that he was at least trying to communicate with one school shooter.
Yes.
And you were aware that he created an account online to email this school shooter.
I don't remember, but I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I did not know that, yeah. I knew he was trying to reach out to one of them.
Okay. Do you remember ever gathering information that he had sent money to this school shooter?
I think he said something about trying to put money on, like a jail account or something.
Like a commissary account?
Yes.
Okay. And without telling me what he said, did you ask him where he got the money from?
No, because I just assumed that he was not being truthful about it.
So you didn't even ask him about it?
No,
Okay.
I don't think.
Okay.
Honestly, that's.
Let me
a very
ask you
long
this.
time
Would
ago.
this information that we are now discussing that you received have been over a year ago?
Over a year from today?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Now, when you learned that Colt was trying to communicate with this school shooter, do you remember which school shooter he was trying to communicate with?
I don't.
Okay. Do you do you recall telling him that this was a bad idea?
I don't remember what I told him about any of it.
Okay.
It was not something that we talked about in depth. It was,
You don't think so?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. It doesn't stand out in your mind that he was trying to communicate with his mass murderer?
Well, yeah, I remember him making a comment about it, but again, he was very interested in all these things. So for him to make a comment about one of them, kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Okay. So you weren't concerned about it?
No,
And you did not share that information with Mr. Gray?
probably not if we were not living together.
Okay. This didn't raise a concern to you such that you would have reached out to law enforcement, for example?
No,
You wouldn't have tried to immediately intervene with mental health treatment at that point, based on that?
no, because he
Just based
wasn't.
on that?
Yeah, he wasn't talking about it, from what I could tell, in any kind of serious manner.
Okay. So you thought that the tone in which that you guys were talking about this was more joking than concerning?
Or just like a random interest.
Okay. Not an obsession?
No,
And based on that, you didn't tell him it was dangerous to do this?
I can't remember what I told him, like I said.
You wouldn't have told him this is unacceptable?
Again, it just depends on what he said and how he said it.
Okay. And it sounds like
If
you
it
don't
was
have a lot
said
of
in
memory.
a, I mean, if I took it in a more of a joking, way, then no, I wouldn't have told him that because it was a joking way. Without reviewing really our conversation, I can't
No,
really tell
we'll
you much
circle
at all
back.
about
and-
it.
Sure, sure. Okay. And pull some of these out. While we're doing this, while looking through this, you stated that it would have been October of '23 that Defax took the kids and gave them to Colin.
Yes.
Is that accurate, roughly, that
Yes.
month?
Yes.
All right, and Colt had come to live with you, it sounds like, in September of '23? That's when you had the exchange where the guitar got thrown, based on your testimony?
I think they said August, but it may have been September.
That's okay, I'm not trying to put words. Do you think it was closer to August?
No, that's just, I think, what the prosecutor said. I can't remember off the top of my head what month. it
Okay,
was.
let's see, what's your memory? Okay. But thereabouts,
Mhm.
right, okay. And prior to October, is it true that Colt had already gone back to live with his dad?
I don't remember the exact date.
Okay, so when Defax took the kids away, do you recall, Colt
Yes.
Jr. and Jenny, do you recall if Colt was still there
No,
with
Colt
you?
had already gone back to stay with his dad.
Colt had
Yes.
already gone back to stay with his dad?
Yeah.
Okay,
Because he rode with his dad down to Fitzgerald to get Jenny and Coley.
he being Colt.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said that was a difficult time for you,
Yes.
is that correct?
Yes.
And the kids were essentially removed, based on your understanding, without telling me what anyone said, because you failed the drug test.
Yes.
That accurate?
Yes.
All right. And like I said, you gave many statements, so I'm just gonna ask you about remembering certain things, and if not, I might be able to kind of point you in the right direction.
Okay.
Do you remember giving a statement to investigator Jason Smith from Barrow County?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So I believe you gave a statement to investigator Smith, but you also had a phone call interview with investigator Smith. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yes.
Okay. Do you also recall an interview with Agent Kelsey Ward and Agent Amelia Maddox from GBI?
I do, yep.
And that would have been the same day as the shooting, is that correct?
I don't remember. It
That's
was
okay.
very close if it wasn't the same day.
Very close, okay. All right. And, all right, let's go through some of these statements. We'll circle back on some of the text messages. So, and just kind of lock some other stuff in as well. The May 2023 police visit, you said you were not aware of that until September of 2024.
Yes,
So you're saying that Colin never shared that information with you about the police coming to his home? Is that
No.
correct?
yes.
Okay. And Colt never shared that information with you as well?
Not that I remember, no.
Not that you recall. Do you think that's something you probably would remember, probably stand out?
Yes,
FBI coming to his house or an FBI tip?
yes.
Okay. Now, when you called the school on the 4th to talk to Miss Butler, you told her it was urgent and there was something you had to tell her right away. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I told her that the conversation itself was urgent.
Told her the conversation was urgent. Did you share the text messages with her?
What text messages?
You had received text message from Colin that were screenshots of text messages sent by Colt. Did you tell Miss Butler about those messages?
I think you're getting the days mixed up. I
Let
called
me
Miss.
try and clarify for you,
Okay.
okay? And thank you for letting me know.
Mhm.
So I am referring to the morning of the shooting.
Yes.
You got some concerning text messages screenshot by Colin that were sent to you.
Yes,
And then after receiving those messages, did you call the school?
yes,
Did you at that time speak with Miss Butler?
yes.
Okay, so now we're on the same page.
Now we're on the
I know
same
you
page.
talked to her a couple times,
Yep.
so that makes sense. All right. Did you tell her what those text messages said?
I assumed that I would.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you remember what you told her?
Well, it was an 8-minute conversation, so, like I
Okay.
said, I covered everything that was in most of what was in the list that I had, as far as Colt's behaviors, and anxiety attack, trying to remember if I shared, yeah, I would have shared that text message with her.
Okay. You didn't tell her you thought he had brought a gun to school that day?
No, because I didn't. There's no way.
Because you didn't.
Because I didn't think that he had brought a gun
Okay.
to school.
You didn't tell her, I think he's going to shoot someone at the school?
I don't remember what I told her. I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you didn't think he brought a gun to the school, did you think he was going to do a school shooting that morning?
At the time, I didn't know what he was going to do. So it's very likely that I just started rattling off a bunch of hypothetical things that he might do, and I
Okay.
could have just been saying, I don't know if he's going to hurt himself. I don't know if he's going to hurt somebody else. I don't know if he's going to shoot himself, shoot somebody else. I may have said it in that way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I literally thought he had brought a gun to school.
And as
I
you
was
just-
trying to get her to have some urgency about her actions.
And as you just testified, you did not believe he had brought a gun to school that day.
No, I mean, if I stopped and you asked me, do you think your son brought a gun to school today or that day? I would tell you, no, absolutely not. Not rationally, I wouldn't have thought that, no.
Nor would you rationally have thought that your son was going to school that day to perpetrate a school shooting.
No.
Now, prior to September 4th, you and your husband texted fairly frequently. Is that fair to say?
It depends. Yeah, all the
guess
days when
it's
he was talking to
relative.
me, it could be
Right.
overwhelming how many texts I would get.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. And in the month of August of 2024, okay, because that's kind of what we've been focused on a little bit. You never sent Mr. Gray a text message just saying Colt is idolizing school shooters, for example.
I can't tell you whether I said that or not.
Okay.
I may have not.
Do you remember texting him that Colt was communicating with school shooters?
I don't remember. There's no way I can remember all the texts that I sent him, especially about Colt and
Okay.
guns and everything.
Okay. Well, we can go through your text messages.
That's fine.
And you were aware that Mr. Gray was working with the school to get Colt counseling.
I know that he had signed a form allowing Colt to have counseling.
Okay. And you're aware from conversations with your mother that she met with Lisa Butler
Yes.
in middle to late August,
Yes.
and they had talked about counseling as well at the school.
Yes.
You were aware that plans had been put in motion for Colt to see someone at the school.
Yes. When my mom went up there, Miss Butler actually told my mom, because my mom told her about the crisis center that I wanted him to go to. And Miss Butler actually told my mom to hold off on taking him to the crisis center until he could meet with the state-appointed counselor that the school used.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that person is not there, every day.
Only on
And
Thursdays,
so-
I believe.
Do what?
Is that person only there on Thursdays?
I'm not sure. You may be correct, but that person, according to my mom, that person was not going to be able to meet with Colt until the following week,
Right.
which is not what I was told to begin with. I thought that it was going to be like next day he's going to get to meet with the person.
And does it sound like the day he would have met with Colt would have been September the 5th of 2024?
Yeah, if that was a Thursday, yeah.
The day after the shooting,
Yes.
right?
And that was the counseling that my mom set up. Not Colin.
That's the counseling your mom set up.
Yes, with Lisa Butler.
Through the school, with
Yes.
Lisa Butler. And your testimony today is that Colin was not involved in that.
I didn't say that.
Well, that's why I'm asking. I want to make sure I'm not.
He signed a document
Okay.
that allowed Colt to see a state-appointed therapist.
Okay.
But as far as scheduling and going to the school and meeting with Lisa Butler, my mom was the one that did all of that.
Your mom's the one that met with Lisa Butler, but you're not sure how much communication Lisa Butler had with Colin.
No, that's correct.
Okay. And on September 4th, when you received these text messages from Colin, you told him to start heading back to the school. About what time was that?
I don't know.
Okay, was that after you had heard there was an active shooter at the school or before?
We didn't officially hear there was an active shooter until later. So
Okay.
that would have been, I would have told him to go ahead and head back to the school before we knew for sure that there was an active shooter.
Before?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I knew that there was something going on with Colt, that he needed to be there.
And even though you sent Colin to the school to deal with whatever was going on with Colt, you did not feel the need to call 911
No,
report anything based on what you learned from Colin, is that correct?
no, because I had already talked to Lisa Butler. And
Okay.
They were,
And you thought that was enough to deal with the issue?
yes.
Now, and I know I'm bouncing around, so just
That's okay.
let me know if I'm not being clear on my dates. But you said you'd been contacted by a school counselor down in Fitzgerald back in September of 2021 regarding a Google search that
Yes.
Colt had done.
Yes.
Okay. So just do that, and then I'll know I need to give you more
Yes.
information to orient you. And it had to do with the search on Google, how to kill your dad or something in that line. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. And the school resource officers actually reported to your home.
Yes.
And I believe you testified that Colin Gray was not at home when they showed up.
Yes.
When he was not there when they had this conversation or whatever conversation they had with you and or Colt.
No, he was not.
Was Colt there when they showed up?
Yes.
Did they in fact, without telling me what they said, did they in fact have a conversation with Colt?
Yes.
All right. And you said that after that incident, you did not immediately tell Colin about that meeting.
No, I didn't.
You said it took you several months before you shared that information
Yeah, it
with
was
him.
probably a couple months, yeah.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, when you were in Fitzgerald, there's a couple of Defax cases, and I just kind of want to make sure I'm understanding. So one of the Defax cases in Fitzgerald, that case was against you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is it true that the allegations that opened the Defax case were that you had physically abused Colt? You had hit him or slapped him or
I'd
something of
slapped
that
him,
nature?
yes.
Okay. And that's what led to the home visits
Yes.
and the drug test?
Yes.
I think you said it was approximately a year of drug testing?
Yeah. It was until we left and moved back up
Okay.
here,
Okay.
which was about a year. Yeah.
Okay. And it sounds like right before they were going to close the case out is when you had this positive test.
Yes.
Do you recall what you tested positive for?
Methamphetamine was the main one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember telling Investigator Smith why you had been using methamphetamine at that time? Do you remember what you told him?
No, I don't. Honestly, I don't even remember us talking.
About why she's using methamphetamine. I think that I'm giving him leeway, but I don't see how that's relevant to whether or not the defendant committed the crimes in this case.
Based on testimony she's already given regarding what was happening in Fitzgerald at that time with Colt and the behavioral issues that he was experiencing and how they were related to Colin.
Let me do this. I think
Yes.
a juror needed a break anyway, is that right? Something like that. All right, go ahead and take a. Shame on him. All right, Jones. All right. Is there a answer to the question that do you know the answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the answer?
So basically what we're getting at is there's been testimony that the issues with Colt's behavior at that time period and also leading up to 2024 were based on his interactions with Colin Gray. The answer that is in another statement that's a recorded statement that we have a transcript of is that Miss Gray started using methamphetamine when Colt got down to Fitzgerald because she was having difficulty taking care of all three kids by herself and working at the same time. What we're getting at, or what we're going to circle back around to and why it's relevant, is because the issues that Colt was having at the time were not attributed to Colin Gray. They would have in fact been attributed to Macee Gray. And there's a pattern of that that will continue to build upon over the next 12 months, leading up to the middle of August prior to the shooting.
Well, he previously objected to us getting into any way that Colin treated Colt. When she answered because he was emotionally and mentally abusive, they asked for a mistrial. Now they want to get into what Macee has done, which I mean, that is completely opposite of what they've previously been trying to do. But again, why Colt was created, why he did this is not relevant. What is relevant is who gave him the gun and what he knew, what that person knew when he gave him the gun. And what this whole case has been about and what Macee has testified to is what the defendant knew, what he knew about his mental state. And what he knew when he continued to let Colt have the gun. Why Macee started doing meth, the amphetamine, is not relevant.
Judge, may I interject here? We probably shouldn't be arguing in front of the witness because we're giving her information that we probably should not be giving. We can send her out.
Understanding what and again, I don't know how often this is going to come up. I'm going to, as to that question, why were you using, I'm going to permit you to ask that over objection and see if there's other issues that come up.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll be in recess for a few minutes.